another update coming in. NATO ambassadors will be meeting this Wednesday at the request of Poland on the basis of Alliance's Article 4. Two European diplomats have informed the same to a news agency after the explosion in Poland close to the Ukrainian border, reportedly caused by a stray Russian missile. Let me go across to Maruf Raza, also with us on the broadcast. Maruf, now, while some maintain that this perhaps was the Russian missile, Moscow says, no, it doesn't belong to us. And while that narrative is being peddled, do you think that's an attempt to provoke a direct clash between Russia and NATO forces?
Yes, it appears to be so. More so because Poland apparently statements to the effect that the missile had Russian markings. And now you have the US dismissing that. So quite clearly there is an attempt to spread the conflict wider, which is what Russia, for all its faults, has been trying to prevent. Because if any NATO country is known to be attacked by Russia, and they can always, Russia can say it happened inequitably, NATO country, it was done by choice. I would think it would be very foolish for NATO to look for an odd stray missile to see that it was to expand the entire conflict, which would include all NATO countries, because there's a clause in the NATO agreement that an attack on one member would be an attack on all members. Is not, I'm saying not likely to expand the conflict to all NATO countries, because that will stretch Russia further. Their agenda was Ukraine for a variety of reasons. To occupy the territory of Ukraine, economically to benefit from Ukraine's strong presence in the global market for grain and fertilizers, and most importantly to serve a Russian historical obsession that Ukraine was originally a of Russia, so they want
how
to
fast
back.
would have it escalated? I mean, even America not clearly aiming at Russian missiles, saying that its possible trajectory doesn't seem to be of Russia. China, in a way, has also been calling for calm and peace, saying that there is no such need for any provocation at this point.
See, I have seen from the utterances that have come all along that Zelensky of Ukraine has been providing a mixed bag of comments. His earlier statements led to the Russian invasion, saying that Ukraine wanted to join NATO, and every effort was to make Ukraine a NATO member. In fact, there's a strong presence of America and others in Ukraine, and that's the reason why has stalled Russia's invasion plans. But then he goes around and says that no, we had no plans to join. Had he made certain very clearly before Russia did the invasion would not have happened. Now Zelensky is further emboldened by the support the world has given, particularly in the international forums where he's being touted around as a hero who stood up to Russia. On his own, he could not have stood up to Russia. He stood up to Russia as America's proxy. They don't want the conflict to spread into other European countries. He has been thinking that after the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Berlin Wall, it would have been the end of any militarization of Europe. But Europe, the clock has been turned back, and that's the biggest fear, that getting involved in a full-fledged military confrontation with Russia would be disastrous for them, as it is they're reeling under the impact of Russian oil and energy sanctions. And now, if they get into a conflict, Europe's economic story is going to go upside down. So nobody beyond Russia at this point would lack conflict, and perhaps to some extent Ukraine, which is reaping the benefits of international recognition.
Yes, Maruf, everyone really watching out for developments on this front. And let me quickly take in a word from Mr. Alok Bansal, also joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Alok Bansal, you know, we are being told as a follow-up to what's happened, the NATO ambassadors will be holding a meeting, this upon Poland's request, and they want to discuss Article 4. If you could throw some light on that for our viewers, why are NATO's Article 4 and 5 being discussed, given this development?
See, because firstly, it allows that an attack on NATO country is to be construed as attack on all countries. But the reports now emanating from the battlefield tell that this was actually a Ukrainian missile, which fell into Polish territory, which was actually fired to counter Russian missiles. So if that be the case, then the situation gets diffused. Otherwise, an attack on a NATO country is a serious issue, and I think would need to be taken cognizance of by the NATO countries. Otherwise, NATO would fail, because the whole purpose of NATO is collective security. And if one of the countries is targeted, then the countries need to react. But now, even if this missile has been fired by Ukrainian forces, this has actually brought NATO to the ground reality that there is a feasibility that there could be something like this which could happen. So I think a meeting like this is preparing grounds for such an eventuality. Should such a thing happen in future, what should be NATO's reaction?